Another week, which means another list of problems. But this time, the problem that I ran into could have ruined this entire project. That is not clickbait. Welcome to my world. All right, I'm not going to go through the whole recap again. If this is your first video on this channel, I'm building a big fish room in my barn, and I've had nothing but problems. I'm doing it almost entirely by myself, with the exception of whenever Lisa helps me. She is always asking, what can I do to help? But most of the jobs in here are just one-person jobs. So I appreciate her offering that, and she is more than willing to help whenever I need it. But it's still basically just me doing this. And this has become a project that is not building a fish room. It's solving problems so that I can build a fish room. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened with this massive problem that we ended up having that could have derailed the entire project. But before I do that, let me tell you about the good things that I did this week, because there's not many of them. Hopefully you'll understand when I get into that massive problem. But I did end up getting this 40-gallon breeder wall completely ready to go. It's not full of water yet. It's not operational, but it's completely ready. This wall over here, almost. Obviously, we're missing some tanks. They're in the fish house right now being used for snails. I haven't hooked up the low boys yet, but all of the airlines, the water lines, they're all hooked up. They're basically ready to start up. And the low boys, I just have to put in the bulkheads and hook up the airline. It's all there. It's all ready. Maybe a half an hour worth of work. This will be ready to fill up with water and get going. There you go. That's what I've done this week. That's all I've done this week. Well, except for the other thing. Okay, before I talk about what it was that happened, I want to give you a little lay of the land here, because if you've been following along with this project, you've seen pipes running everywhere and all over the place, and you might be a little bit confused as to how this whole thing lays out. I want to go over that real quick, and then all of this is going to make sense, and you'll understand why I've been so frustrated. But the snail room is behind that door. You might even be able to see the tanks back there. That's where Lisa is going to be housing all of her snails. She's going to be breeding snails in there, and we're going to be putting fish in there too. But that is what we are calling the snail room. This here is where those tanks down there with the blinking lights, they're not really blinking, it's just the LEDs in the camera doing that. Those used to be here. They got slid down, a new rack built in its place. There will be 24 tanks there with the 3 low boys down at the bottom. Then we have that wall there, which is the 16, 18, is it 18? 18 40 breeders, all that entire wall. I had to massively level that off. It was a huge headache, but I got it done. And then down the center here, where you see this giant ugly thing hanging from the ceiling, there's gonna end up being 72 tanks there. That is the next phase of this project. So what I've done is installed 3-inch PVC drains for all of these tanks. I had to do that because I'm installing a water changing system in here that's going to be automated. It's a flow through system. Water will be supplied to all of the tanks. It'll mix in with the water that's already in the tank and then overflow down into a main drain. Each tank has its own drain that will drain into the main drain, which is good because every single tank will be independent, basically making every single tank its own quarantine tank. We're not going to have to worry about any cross-contamination or anything like that. As long as we are smart with our nets and not going back and forth, then we should be fine, which is great. And it's a system that is going together quite nicely, but not without its share of problems. But the drains are gravity-fed drains, which means the entire system, this is the 3-inch PVC, the main drains, has to be angled. It has to angle downward, hence gravity. Gravity is going to make it all flow to a central location. If you want to talk about the furthest point, that would be the back wall of the snail room. That would be the furthest drain from where it exits the building, or is supposed to. So all of the drains run behind the tanks. You can't see them anymore, but even here, there is a drain that runs behind all of the tanks. It is at a slight angle. We're not talking about an angle like that. We're talking about from one end to the other, it might be 1.5 inches. As long as it's downhill the whole way, gravity is gonna do its thing. So with the drains in the snail room, it runs out of the wall about halfway down this rack here. And then it goes into a T, which goes over. And so basically all of the drains run to that back corner back there on the end of the 40 breeder wall. Let me make sure you can actually see that. Yeah, you can. So they all run down to that back corner. And what my plan was all along was I'm going to drill a hole, large 3-inch hole, underneath the floor, which is kind of complicated. You may not know this if you haven't followed, but when you go into this section over here, where we have our dry goods, there's 2 steps that go up to that section of the room. And so I was going to go underneath that and run that drain out of the building. We talked all about it last week, where that water is going to end up going and all of that. Surprisingly, very few people had anything negative to say about that. People were like, yeah, that's common sense. But anyway, that was the plan. And so before I got this rack up and running, before I got the 40 breeder wall up and running and the snail room up and running, I needed the drains to be functional. So the first thing that I wanted to do this week, or had to do, was run that drain out of the building. And so that was what my intent was on Tuesday. Mondays, out of the question. Too many orders to pack on Mondays. But Tuesday, that was my goal, was to get that drain completed all the way to the corner and run out of the building. But that's when the big problem happened. And when I say it had the potential to ruin everything, I mean it. It really did. When it all went down, Lisa actually pulled out the phone and started recording my actual reaction when I found this. Well, I mean, it was about like a half an hour after or whatever. I had calmed down a little bit. But let me show you that clip, show you what my idea was to solve this problem then, and then I'll show you how I actually did it. All right, so we've had a minor, well, no, major setback. I'm running the drains. Purpose of today was to get the drains run out of the building. If you are not familiar with this system, the drains run along the bottom of the wall here. It's a gravity system, so they're at an angle all the way down from the snail room, all the way around. It stops in this corner here. But this was going to run down this wall, tie in to this 40 breeder wall, as well as this center section here, which was going to also tie into it. And then I was going to go straight out that corner there, under the floor and out of the building, under this second floor up here, out of the building. But as I started cutting the hole here, realized there is a 12 by 12 beam underneath there that I am not willing to even attempt to cut through. So had to start looking at alternatives. Considered going out the back of the building. That's not going to work. Considered going down through the floor. No, that's not going to work either. So we have come up with a solution that is not ideal, but it'll work. And it's going to involve this tub. This is just a masonry mixing tub. I'm going to have to raise the drains up as high as I can. I will have these drains empty into this tub, and then I'll put a sump in here a sump pump like you would have in your basement or in your crawl space, pump the water up and out of the building that way. I don't like it. It is another step. It's another possible point of failure. If that sump pump doesn't come on, then we're in trouble. But we're going to put a water sensor on there hooked up to the security system in the building. It'll alert us if water goes on the floor. I can stop the system if it's, if we happen to be like in Bermuda or the Bahamas on vacation, because we go there so often. But anyway, we can stop the system and then get out here with whatever means to clean it up. There's the possibility, too, of maybe even putting in a second sump pump for redundancy purposes. I don't know. We'll see. But that's what we're going to have to do because I don't know any other way of getting water out of this building. So nothing can be easy. Yeah. Basically, a railroad tie runs the complete length of this entire building. And the structure of this barn is on that beam. Now, could I have notched it and run that drain through there and not have the building fall down? Probably. But I was not willing to risk it. So when I saw that, as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, well, we are effed now. Like, we're screwed. I don't know what to do. Would this have been something that would have been preventable? I suppose I could have cut into that prior to even starting this project and discovered that that was underneath there. I don't know. There's no way to do all of that. There's no way to know everything's going to be absolutely perfect before we ever even start the project. And what if I had seen that? I would have had to figure out another way. It's not like I would have said, well, we can't use this barn anymore because, there's a beam there. I would have figured out something. And I did figure out something. It's not operational yet, like none of this stuff is, but I did figure it out. And don't worry. I know that because I haven't said anything about it yet, there's probably people who have already typed in the comments what I'm about to address right now. Just understand, if you've already clicked send, you can edit it. It's fine. All you got to do is go back down to that and click the three little buttons or the three little dots, and you can edit your comment. But if you have commented about this already, I don't blame you because I didn't like it either. And that is using that little masonry mixing tub. I was not a fan of that idea at all. It really bothered me. And almost instantly after I filmed that little clip, I realized that was going to be a massive mistake. And I redid the whole thing using a tote, a 27-gallon tote, which is still not ideal, and bringing the drain lines into the side of that with a very well cut hole to be really tight. And then I also siliconed that in and then went to Lowe's and bought a sump pump, which is in there now. Again, it's not hooked up yet because whatever. But and then I also bought the PVC to run it out of the building. I guess if there's a nice thing about this, it's that I'm not going to have a 3-inch pipe running out of my building. It's just going to be an 1.5-inch pipe. Whatever. But I feel a whole lot better about using that tote rather than the little mason mixing thing. That mixing tub is meant for mixing mortar on job sites to put in brick. And it's only like 8 inches tall. And I've just felt weird about that. Sump pumps are designed to pump a ridiculous amount of water very, very fast out of a building to prevent your basement or crawl space from flooding. That's what sump pumps are for. And so it's one of those things where when the water flows into that, it's instantly going to kick on the sump pump and pump it out of there. It's not something that should be a problem. I mentioned in that clip that I'm considering a second sump pump for redundancy purposes, and I am considering that. But it's something that I will add later because the $300 sump pump and all of the stuff associated with it is not something that was in the budget for this project. And so I could only get one at this point. But I think I will add a second one down the road. There's certainly room in there for it. If the first one fails, the second one will kick on. And then we really won't know until the second one fails, and then whatever. But the system that we have in here, like I mentioned, has, I can get little water sensors where if water hits the floor, it'll set off an alarm. We've had it happen in the fish house. Don't ask me how. So we're going to add one of those back there, just in case, that way we'll know and we can shut it off. With the water changing system being hooked up to my phone, I would get an alert to that through the security system, and then I can stop the water from flowing from my phone, and then get out here and bring the shop vac so that I can clean everything up. But this is one of those things that was a massive setback. Not financially. I mean, it wasn't the end of the world as far as the finances go, but it was still like a $500 expense that we were not expecting. And so that sucks. But I did incorporate, when I set the budget for this, I incorporated a little bit of wiggle room in there because there's always going to be surprises. I had no idea how many surprises there was going to be on this project, but it is what it is. I haven't lost any sleep over it, and I think it's a good solution. I think it works, but, well, I think it will work. I shouldn't say I think it works, but I haven't really gotten it running yet because of everything else. But one of the things that I haven't mentioned yet, which was a huge hassle and took an entire day, is I had to completely redo the drains from the end, or the furthest point in the snail room, all the way into here. Now, I don't mean I had to pull all the PVC out and put new PVC in, but I had to go through all of them and raise them up higher, because I don't know if you saw in that clip, maybe I'll put a bit of it and B-roll over top of me, but the hole that was supposed to go through the floor out of the building was almost all the way down at the ground. And so the drains I had set to that, but now I was raising them up 10 inches off of the floor, and so I had to go through all of these and raise the drains up, which led to some complications here because the rack wasn't far enough away from the wall, and I had to cut wood out and all this. Oh God, it was a whole thing. It took an entire day to raise up those drains, and then I could finally get started on installing all of these drains, which is that 1/2-inch irrigation pipe, which I have right here. This stuff is very easy to work with, particularly when you can find the end. This irrigation pipe is super simple to work with. And so I had to go through, install all of those all the way down to the newly raised drains, and finally got to where I am now. So hopefully you can understand why they're not up and running. It doesn't end there though, because I was in the middle of doing this whole thing. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, Lisa's always asking, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? And she asked me the other day, what can I do to help? And I said, well, I am going to be installing all of this Airline. I need 2 of these for every single tank in this building. I mean, you can absolutely go through and cut all of those if you want. And she said, yay, finally something that I can help with. She's always eager to help. And so she started going through and cutting all of these Airlines and water lines. They're all right here. And I already had these done, but I needed them for that 20-gallon wall, and I needed them all for the snail room. And she started cutting them, and then she said those words, or whatever, maybe it's one word, I don't know. She said, uh-oh. I said, oh God, what now? She said, we're going to run out of this. We're not going to have enough to do it. And she was absolutely right. I bought a 500-foot roll of this Airline, and we ran out before this room was even done. Didn't even get to touch the snail room. And that just blows my mind. Like, it never even occurred to me that 500 feet wouldn't be enough, but it wasn't. And so what do you do when you're in a pinch and you need probably 1,000 more feet of this stupid airline? You go to your distributor. He's out of stock of it. Damn it. I try another distributor. They're out of stock. So I went to my least favorite website on the planet, and they had it. I'm talking about that website that starts with an A and ends with Mazan. Went on there. They had some BS Chinese stupid, I don't even know what the brand was. And it was going to be able to be delivered quickly. It was in stock. I said, okay, I'm just going to bite the bullet. I'm going to order that. And then I have plenty of other things that I can do while I'm waiting for that to show up. It was supposed to show up this coming Tuesday. I was like, well, that's fine, because I'm not going to be packing, or I'm not going to be working on the fishing room on Monday anyway. Perfect. That'll be great. Ordered it. I ordered 3 500-foot rolls, and got the email a little bit later from that company that starts with an A and ends in Mazan. And they said, order confirmation. Your order will ship on like the 19th. And I'm like, excuse me? The 19th? Y'all don't even want to hear my rants about Amazon. I get it. But remember last week when I said they're going downhill? Does anybody else see this? Maybe it's just because of where I live. I don't know. But it used to be, even here, living in the middle of nowhere, you knew if you ordered something on Monday, you were going to get it on Wednesday, even out here in BF Egypt. Now it's like it'll ship whenever it ships. That's when you'll get it. It was telling me I was going to have it on Tuesday, but then it switched. I don't even know what the date is, but it was like the following Wednesday that it was going to finally show up. And I said, forget it. I canceled that order. What I'm going to end up doing, and get it way faster, is I'm going to call Gemco on Monday, and I'm going to say, hey, listen, can you do me a favor? If I order this, can you ship it today? And I know they will, because Gemco is great. If they don't have it, they won't be able to, but I'm sure they do. Hopefully they can do that. And they're in New Jersey. We're in North Carolina. It'll be a 2-day thing. We'll get it on Wednesday. We should be good. It's a day later than what Amazon was originally predicting. But anyway, is anybody else facing that situation with Amazon now? I hate that website. I despise it. I don't like ordering anything from there. It seems to me now, everything I look on that website for, I have a new hobby that I've been doing at night. I'm not going to talk about it because it's for me, it's not for you. And I have to order a bunch of little teeny tiny little things. And I don't have any hobby shops around me that are within like 2 hours of where I live. So I go to that website, and every single thing I've looked at, it's at least a week before it'll get here. What happened to Amazon? I understand. I hate Amazon. Everybody understands that I hate Amazon. But daggone it. It used to be 2 days, and now everything's a week. Anyway, I'm not going to be talking about that anymore. So this project has gotten way, way, way behind schedule. And there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. Unforeseen circumstances have put us where we are now. I'm certainly not giving up, but I got to tell you, when I first saw that beam there, I thought, okay, this could be the end. Like, this could be the catastrophic thing that shuts this entire project down. I'm very thankful that I came up with a pretty simple solution. And it's not like I'm some kind of genius engineer. There's a lot of people that have done it this way. In fact, I've seen it on YouTube where people use a 5-gallon bucket and put the sump in there, or the sump pump in there, and pump the water out. So it's going to be fine. And I bought a sump pump that will pump 60 gallons a minute. That's not even close to what's going to be coming out of this system when we do water changes. We're going to be doing 1 rack at a time. And it's not going to be anywhere near that. It's going to be like 108. The biggest rack is going to be like 180 gallons in 40 minutes, going into basically a cistern that will pump 60 gallons per minute. Like, I'm not worried about it. It's going to work fine. And hopefully that's going to be next week. I'm going to run the line, the new drain line out of the building. I'll get my Airline in, hopefully from Gemco, hopefully in 2 days, get everything hooked up, including the snail room, and fill all of this up with water and start testing that system out. I'm really excited about it. It's not the way I thought it was going to be, but at least it's going to work, and I can't wait to give it a try. So thank you for sticking around with me here. This has been an absolute challenge. I do not want to do videos every week talking about all of the problems that I'm having. That is my least favorite thing to do. It just seems like that's what life is giving me right now with this project. And it's frustrating, but it's getting done. It's not going to get done at the original date that we thought it was going to be, but what are you going to do? I mean, here we are. If you're curious, and if you've stayed till this far in the video, if you're curious when we are anticipating fish being available on our website, I'm just going to say probably the end of February. I know that seems like way far into the future, but you know, it's just the two of us here. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to go through that whole thing again. I still have the biggest rack in this whole system to build, 64 tanks to drill, all of that. I mean, yeah, that massive rack that's actually going to be where you are right now, this whole area here, it's going to be the easiest because it's a straight plumbing shot. It's, you know, it's not going to be that big of a deal, but it's probably something that's going to take 2 weeks to do. And the way I'd like to get it done, this whole thing, is I would like to have the fish in our possession for about a month before they become available on the site. That way we know everything's working properly. We're not going to just open this thing up and that's when we start having all the problems. I'd like to have problems before we ever even launch any of this. I'm going to take you along every single step of the way. When we get our first shipment of fish in, what is happening with all of the fish and stuff like that, you're going to be here for it, I promise. And I got to tell you, that is the part I'm looking forward to the most, because it's not building racks and drilling glass and finding beams and running PVC, and I just can't wait for that. But it's coming, I promise. I'm hoping by the end of January, I'm hoping to have everything operational, including the new rack, and then there'll be a month where we'll be talking about the fish, and I'll be putting the fish on the website and getting all of the photos and all of the descriptions and all of the stuff and all of the things. And then hopefully end of February is when I will click publish and let the fun begin. That's what I'm excited about. So anyway, this has been a challenge, but what are you going to do? I started this project off like, you know, I'm up for the challenge. I'm not up for the challenge anymore. I'm over this. I want it to be done, and I want to have fish in here. It's a little early in the process to feel that way, but anyway, not up for the challenge anymore. I don't want any more challenges. I just want to build racks and put water in them and say, come buy my fish. Don't come come to my website and buy my fish. Don't come here, because you're not going to get a warm welcome here unless we know you personally. Anyway, bye.